The ark drifted through the void like a dying heartbeat, its once bright hull dim to a faint red glow that pulsed irregularly, as if struggling to remember how to live. Humans had built it to be a symbol of hope, a star-born refuge that could cross centuries unbroken. But now, it floated in silence, wrapped in an infection that clung to its metal like frozen blood. Mara stood by the viewport of the shuttle. It approached the ark's dorsal docking ring. Frost crept across the outside of the glass, reacting to the ark's failing temperature regulators. She wiped her line with her glove and looked again, her breath catching as the faint outlines of twisted biological structures came into view. Tendrils wrapped around antenna arrays, pulsing nodes replacing old navigation modules, and a web of alien growth that didn't belong there. Behind her, Draxon adjusted his heavy gauntlets, the plates clicking into place with the sound of grinding stone. The towering vast warrior ducked slightly so he wouldn't hit the shuttle's ceiling. His red eyes narrowed, studying the infected starship with a mix of disdain and curiosity. Humans build strange things, he growled. Mara didn't look back at him. It wasn't built like this. The Avari scout, responsive and graceful, hovered closer to the viewport with the flutter of his translucent wings. His silver pupils dilated as he examined the infection with predator-like focus. It is growing, alive, and hungry. Dr. Solon was last to stand. He clutched his data slate with an anxious grip, the Kirill scientist's mandibles clicking softly as he reviewed the readings again. His voice carried a subtle tremor. It feels us coming. Helion materialized in the center of the shuttle, his holographic form flickering between stability and interference. The infection had disrupted long-range communication, and even Helion's internal processors seemed disturbed by the proximity. The ark's internal systems are responding to our presence, he said in his calm, near-human voice. Docking sequence is unstable. I advise caution. The shuttle shuddered as its clamps locked onto the ark. A sickening groan echoed through the hull, as if the ship itself resented their arrival. Mara's jaw tightened. She secured her rifle, checked her sidearm, and tapped her finger against the dog tag hanging around her neck. Her brother's name was engraved into the metal. She had stared at it every night for the last 6 months. Jalen, missing in action, presumed dead. But the message beacon from the ark had repeated a human distress signal, one specifically signed with her brother's identifier. She couldn't afford to hope, but she couldn't stop either. The shuttle door opened with a hiss, revealing a dim corridor coated in a thin sheen of organic residue that glistened like wet oil. The air was cold and stale, carrying a faint metallic scent. Draxon stepped out first, his heavy boots leaving deep impressions on the growth covering the floor. It breathes, he muttered. Indeed. The walls seemed to pulse gently, as if mimicking a slow inhale and exhale. The Avari scout whispered, not a machine. Not anymore. Helion's hologram stabilized for a moment, his eyes glowing softly as he scanned the corridor ahead. Human life signs detected, but faint, several levels deeper. Mara's pulse surged. She held her rifle tighter. Jalen, I cannot confirm individual identity, Helion said, but the signature matches human baseline patterns. That was enough. The deeper they went into the ark, the more the infection thickened. Tendrils wrapped around light fixtures, half-absorbed tools protruded from resin-like material, and distant echoes reverberated through the hull's soft, almost like conversations happening far away. At times, the whispers sounded eerily human. Draxon froze at one point, raising a clenched fist to signal stillness. The others halted. A faint tapping came from the vents overhead, then a voice. Hello. Mara's skin went numb. She raised her rifle toward the vent. The voice came again, clearer this time. A young man's voice, weak, trembling. Mara, Solon shuddered, stepping back. It knows your name. Mara's breath caught. Jalen. There was no response, only a low scraping sound that moved deeper into the ship. Helion flickered. The infection mimics voices to lure prey. Emotional baiting. Do not trust auditory cues. But the voice had been so precise, so real, The corridor opened into a larger chamber, once a crew commons area, now transformed into a half-organic cavity. Cocoon-like structures lined the walls, some of them split open, others still sealed with layers of fleshy membrane. Draxon approached one and stabbed his blade into it. A burst of steam escaped. The cocoon opened. Inside lay the mummified remains of a crewman, skin grey, veins overtaken by blue filaments, eyes fused shut. Solon recoiled. It wasn't eating them, it was studying them. The infection learns, Helion added. Everything on this ship is part of a single neural organism. Mara swallowed hard. We need to find the survivors. Before it finds them, they pressed onward. Lights flickered above, reacting to their movements. Tendrils retracted from the ceiling, pulling back like nervous creatures, sensing a predator. For a moment, the infection seemed almost afraid of them. Then the corridor ahead split in two, one path glowing faintly blue, the other red. Helion paused. The Ark is attempting to guide us. Which path leads to the survivors? Mara asked. Both. Solon's mandibles clicked nervously. It wants to separate us. Mara didn't hesitate. We stay together. We take the red path. The Avari scout turned his head sharply. Why red? Because the blue looks too welcoming. She muttered. The others nodded. They stepped into the red-lit corridor. The temperature dropped sharply. Frost lined the pipes overhead. Draxon's breath came out in thick clouds. A deep vibration traveled through the floor, the sound of something large moving beneath them. Helion raised a hand. Be prepared. A prime node specimen is near. Mara steadied her grip on the rifle. Define near. The wall to their left bulged, then split. A mass of elongated limbs unfolded from the opening, joints bending at unnatural angles. Its body was partly skeletal, partly armored, with clusters of luminous blue eyes blinking independently across its surface. It towered over them, limbs scraping the ceiling, all of its eyes focused on Mara. And it spoke with her brother's voice. Sister. Mara was fired. The blast tore through one cluster of eyes, splattering blue fluid across the corridor. The creature shrieked a sound like metal scraping bone and lunged. Draxon slammed into it, tackling it against the wall. The Avari scout darted upward, blades carving through tendrils. Solon activated a neural firewall spike, driving it into the ground. It erupted into a shimmering dome that pushed the creature back momentarily. Helion flickered violently. Its neural lattice is adapting faster than anticipated. The creature smashed its limbs into the firewall. Cracks splintered across the dome. Mara pulled a plasma charge from her belt and hurled it. It stuck to the creature's chest. She grabbed Draxon's arm. Move. They dove backward as the charge detonated. The blast blew Thepram node apart in a burst of blue and white flame. The shockwave knocked them off their feet. When the smoke cleared, the creature was reduced to twitching remains, its limbs still spasming. The walls around them glistened as the infection withdrew from the damaged area. Solon scanned the remains, his voice shaking. It was learning Jalen's voice patterns in real time, studying your emotional reactions. Then we move faster, Mara said, standing. Before something worse finds us. Helion projected a new map. A human life signature is confirmed 8 levels deeper. Location, maintenance shaft Delta 7. Mara's heart pounded. Jalen. Unknown. Helion corrected. But softly. Was the closest he could come to hope. They descended deeper into the Ark, the infection growing more aggressive. At one point the walls writhed, closing behind them as if trapping them inside a living creature. But they kept going. At last, they reached Delta 7, a vertical shaft with a narrow platform. Something tapped from below. A weak, rhythmic knock. Human. Mara rappelled down without hesitation. Helion's light guided her. She reached a small maintenance door. A message had been carved into it with a screwdriver. Unstill me. Don't shoot. Her breath broke. She unlocked the hatch. Inside, weak and trembling, sat Jalen. Alive. He reached out with shaking hands. Mara pulled him into her arms, tears falling silently. I knew you'd come, he whispered, but his next words froze her blood. Mara, you shouldn't have come alone. Draxon, Solon, and the Avari scout landed behind her. Draxon growled, "We are not alone." Jalen shook his head violently. "No, you don't understand." He pointed upward. "It's above you." They turned, and the darkness at the top of the shaft unfolded into a massive silhouette, a prime node far larger than the one they fought. And this one wasn't mimicking one. Voice. It mimicked hundreds. It screamed in perfect chorus, and it dropped toward them. The first pulse hit Earth on a Thursday, an almost insulting choice of day for the end of the world. Most of humanity didn't feel it. No explosions, no bright lights, no alien ships blotting out the sky. It came as a low-frequency gravitational tremor that slipped through satellites, oceans, bones, and bloodstreams like an invisible tide. Scientists called it an anomaly. The government called it classified. Civilians called it that weird vibrating moment. But a handful of people, those born with a neurological quirk no one had ever studied, felt something else entirely. One of them was a 23-year-old paramedic named Ryan Hale. At the moment the pulse passed through the city, he was holding the wrist of an elderly man in an ambulance, checking for a pulse of his own. The moment the anomaly hit, Ryan froze, eyes wide, his entire nervous system lighting up like an overloaded circuit. He felt not heard, not imagined, but felt a message. A signal so huge it didn't fit inside a mind. An untranslatable warning from something impossibly far away. He didn't tell anyone. Who would believe a paramedic claimed the universe whispered to him? Over the next week, more anomalies struck, each one stronger, each one tighter in frequency. Every time, Ryan felt the same thing, a pattern, a rhythm, a countdown, and buried under it, hunger. Something enormous scrape-wrapping its way through space-time, a predator sniffing at a door. People started getting sick. At first, it looked like fainting spells, then seizures, then hallucinations of a giant void with teeth like broken asteroids. News channels ran footage of people collapsing in subway stations, screaming that something is coming. Hospitals filled with patients whose brains showed energy spikes that no I could identify. Entire regions lost power for seconds at a time as the pulses intensified, and Ryan alone could sense the meaning behind them. The pulses weren't attacks, they were scans. Something in the dark was searching, something that had found Earth. By the fourth week, the world governments announced a full global emergency. The anomalies were causing structural failures in satellites, triggering premature volcanic activity, and destabilizing tectonic plates. Nations that had never spoken cooperated overnight, because none of them had a choice. That was the week Ryan stopped pretending he wasn't connected. He began writing the patterns. He felt thousands of strange geometric sequences. Neurologists, physicists, and xenolinguists gathered around him. He was a living radio, tuned to a hostile universe. But the more they studied his signal, the more afraid they became, because something was answering back. Not to them, to him. The first voice came during a test. A spike of energy hit Ryan's skull so violently he collapsed on the lab floor, convulsing. The researchers backed away, unsure whether to help or run. Ryan's eyes flew open mid-seizure. But they weren't his eyes anymore. They were dark, reflective, and bottomless. He spoke a single word in a voice layered with echoes. Closer. He had no memory of saying it. That night, the stars changed. A cluster of them barely visible through a telescope the day before had shifted in a mathematically impossible pattern. Astronomers argued. Militaries panicked. Civilians watched the news in silence. Only Ryan knew the truth. They weren't stars. They were jaws. A being so vast its silhouette replaced constellations was descending toward the Sol system, not through space, but through the folds between realities. A creature older than galaxies. A cosmic apex predator, devouring civilizations by consuming the dimensions they lived in. It didn't visit planets, it unmade them, and Ryan was the accidental receiver of its approach. By morning, governments reached a brutal conclusion. If Ryan was a link to the creature, the only way to break that link was to remove him. But someone else reached him first. At 3:21 a.m., military forces stormed the research facility. Alarms blared. Scientists screamed. Ryan barely had time to sit up as soldiers aimed rifles at him. And then the ceiling cracked open. A ship sleek, silent, nothing built by human hands descended through the rupture in reality. Gravity folded. Lights bent. The soldiers floated helplessly as an invisible force lifted Ryan into the air. A voice spoke directly into his skull. Not the predator. Someone else. Someone fleeing from it. Ryan Hale, the voice said. We have come to take you out of this world. You are the first human in history to hear the Leviathan. You are the only one who might stop it. Ryan, shaken, terrified, suspended in midair, whispered, Stop it. I don't even know what it wants, the ship answered. It wants everything. And before anyone could stop them, Ryan vanished into a tear in space, leaving Earth behind as the Leviathan's shadow darkened the sky. And the countdown reached 0. Ryan woke on a floor that wasn't a floor smooth, translucent, and warm like living skin, yet pulsing with soft light beneath its surface. The air tasted metallic, like breathing inside a battery. He sat up slowly, heart hammering. The room around him curved in impossible geometry, walls that twisted without corners, glowing veins running like circuitry, and symbols forming and dissolving on the surfaces as if the ship itself were thinking. A figure stood in front of him, not humanoid, not symmetrical dot, it shifted shape like liquid metal, mimicking biology's shoulders to high, limbs too long, and a face that rearranged itself every few seconds, trying to approximate features Ryan could understand. When it finally settled on something vaguely human to eyes, a mouth, and a nose, it spoke with a strange harmony of overlapping tones. You are conscious, it said. Good. Our window is short. Ryan pushed himself back against the wall, breath unsteady. Who are you? What are you? Why did you take me? We are the Cavalry, the being said. A civilization that once thrived on the edge of the Orion Arm until the Leviathan consumed our star cluster. We are all fate remains, fragments, survivors, ghosts. Its voice trembled not with fear, but with the memory of a wound so large it scarred the soul. Ryan swallowed. You said I'm the only one who can stop it. That monster, why me? I'm just a paramedic. The alien stepped closer. The air around it shimmered with a soft electromagnetic hum. You are not just anything. The Leviathan's pulses are cosmic sonar. They search for neural patterns that can act as conduits. Most minds collapse under the pressure. Yours adapted. You absorb the frequency without disintegration. Your species is young, chaotic, unpredictable. But your mind has something we have never seen. What? Ryan whispered. A resistance to entropy. You heard the Leviathan and remained whole. Ryan stared, stunned. It was calling to me. No, the alien said sharply. It was scanning you, and it marked you. That is why we had to extract you, before your world fell completely under its perception. Earth is already on the brink. Ryan felt sick. Is my planet going to die? Not yet. Time works differently around the Leviathan. What seems like the beginning of the end is only its first breath against your dimension. But once it fully arrives, nothing survives. The ship shuddered deep, rumbling, like thunder contained inside metal. The alien's eyes widened. We have been found. A spike of cold shot through Ryan's chest. Found by what? The Leviathan. No, the alien replied, voice darkening. By its hunters. Before Ryan could ask, the walls of the ship turned transparent, revealing open space and something moving through it. Sleek black shapes glided toward them like predatory birds gliding through the void, wings of shadow trailing behind. Their bodies shimmered with void energy, each one leaving behind a smear of warp space. They weren't large. They didn't need to be. They were the Leviathan's scouts, organisms bred to seek out anomalies, find survivors, and erase them. The alien grabbed Ryan's arm, pulling him toward a central chamber, where a spiraling engine pulsed like a beating heart. Do not let them touch you, it warned. If they reach you, The Leviathan will know your location. We cannot outrun it again. How do we fight them? Rian asked. We cannot. But we can hide. The alien pressed its hand against the engine. In an instant, the ship folded literally, folded into itself, collapsing dimensions around them. The stars blurred. Space bent. The world outside stretched thin until everything became a crystalline smear. Then silence. Rian heard his own breathing again. We are in null space, the alien said. Outside the Leviathan's perception, Rian clenched his fists. You still haven't told me why I'm here. What exactly do you expect me to do? The Calthari's shifting face softened. The humans have a trait that the Leviathan cannot understand. Something that defies its logic. Something no species we've seen is possessed with such ferocity. What trait? Rian asked. The alien answered without hesitation. Defiance. Rian blinked. Defiance. That's your grand plan. It is the only force the Leviathan cannot predict. It consumes order. It consumes patterns. It consumes everything that eventually yields to inevitability. But your kind fight even when the universe tells you it is hopeless. Your neural structure reflects that. You think stubbornness is going to help us fight a cosmic monster. Not stubbornness, the alien corrected. The ability to break patterns. To disrupt fate itself. Rian exhaled shakily. And how do we use that? The alien gestured to the engine. The Leviathan speaks through frequencies. You hear them. We need you to speak back. Rian froze. You want me to talk to it? No, the alien whispered. We want you to confuse it, to break it, to show it something it has never encountered in all the civilizations it has devoured. Rian swallowed hard. And what's that? The alien leaned in, its form flickering with urgency. A mind that refuses to die. Rian's pulse thundered in his ears. Then what happens now? The alien looked toward the rippling edges of null space, where the faint outline of the Leviathan's scouts pressed like shadows against a window. Now, the Calthari said, we prepare you to face a god. End of part 2. Say, start part 3, you said. Start part 3, ChatGPT said. Rian didn't feel like someone preparing to face a god. He felt like a man who had been dragged far outside his depth. As the alien guided him deeper into the ship, the air thickened with a strange pressure like gravity mixed with electricity. The walls pulsed with violet light, casting shifting shadows across the alien's half-formed features. This is the resonance chamber, the Calthari said. It will allow us to map your neural signal into a dimensional waveform. Rian stared blankly. English, please. It will let you speak in the Leviathan's language. That did not make him feel better. The chamber was circular and vast, filled with floating rings of crystal humming at different pitches. In the center hovered a platform of woven light strands alive, vibrating. Rian stepped onto it reluctantly, feeling it flex under his weight like a giant heartbeat. The alien raised a hand. The rings rotated, aligning with one another. The hum deepened into a layered drone. Rian felt the tone seep into his bones. What's happening? He whispered. We are sensing your mind to the chamber. Do not resist. Resist what? A needle of sound struck Rian's skull, and everything inside his head erupted. It wasn't pain. Pain would have been merciful. This was like his thoughts were being scraped open, exposed, stretched across dimensions. His memories flashed childhood. His mother's laugh, his first day as a paramedic, the old man whose pulse he checked before the first anomaly. The chamber was reading him. Then something else touched his mind. A presence, massive, cold, ancient. It was like a star dying inside his skull, like collapsing, space twisting, heat freezing. Rian gasped, falling to his knees, but the platform held him up like invisible hands. The alien shouted from somewhere far away, do not let it inside. Focus on your identity. The presence pushed harder. Rian felt swallowed like he was being pulled apart into billions of data points. A voice, impossibly distant yet impossibly close, rumbled through him. You are seen. The words weren't sound. They were gravitational pressure. Reality bending around meaning. Rian's breath choked in his throat. Stop, he managed. Get out of my head. The Leviathan didn't stop. You are pattern. You are data. You belong to the void. Rion's vision blurred. Dimensional pressure squeezed his lungs, his arteries, his neurons. His heart stuttered. He was dying. No, he was being erased. Rion. The alien's voice tore through the storm. Fight it. Show it the human anomaly. The human anomaly. Defiance. Rion clung to a single memory, one he rarely revisited. The night he became a paramedic. The night he held a dying boy hit by a speeding car. The boy's hands squeezing his with the desperate strength of someone begging not to go. Rion had refused to stop CPR, and when the attending doctor called the time of death. 90 seconds later, the boy's heart spontaneously restarted. Rion didn't save him, but he refused to accept his ending. That was who Rion Hale was. Not special, not chosen, not powerful, just someone who didn't know when to quit. Rion grabbed that memory like a lifeline and screamed into the void, filling his mind. No. The Leviathan paused. It wasn't shocked, it didn't have emotions the way living beings did, but Rion felt something twist in its perception, like he had produced a note outside its mathematical range. The chamber around him responded. The rings vibrated violently. The alien shouted, "It can feel you resisting. Push harder." Rion forced every memory, every fear, every joy, every ugly and beautiful part of being human into the void. He let the Leviathan feel his confusion, his panic, his stubbornness, his refusal to break. And for the first time, Rion sensed something like hesitation from the cosmic predator. This pattern is not predictable. The alien gasped. Rion, it cannot read you. You are distorting its perception. This is what we needed. Rion felt the Leviathan pull back, but not in retreat. It was sharpening its attention. The fractured mind. Potential anomaly. You will be taken. Rion's breath caught. Taken. What does that mean? The alien didn't answer. The Leviathan did. You will be made part of the void. The presence recoiled, leaving Rion collapsing onto the platform, gasping like he'd been drowning. The rings slowed. The chamber dimmed. The alien rushed to him, catching his shoulders. You did it, the Calthary said. You made it notice you, and not understand you. We can use that. We can weaponize that. Rion coughed, throat raw. Weaponize me? No, your unpredictability, your defiance. The Leviathan consumes fixed patterns, but you are chaos. Rion didn't feel like chaos. He felt like a guy one heartbeat away from vomiting. Then the ship lurched violently. Reality trembled. The alien's expression darkened. It found the edge of null space. We must leave immediately. Rion struggled to stand. Where? The alien activated the ship's drive. Dimensional energy whirled around them. To the last surviving Calthary citadel, it said. Why? Rion asked. The alien looked at him with grave seriousness. Because it is where we will teach you how to fight a creature the size of a galaxy. The ship tore out of null space, and the Leviathan turned its gaze toward them. The moment the ship tore out of null space, Rion felt reality snap back around him, and Rubbelabanti stars reappeared distant, cold, trembling with a faint distortion that made space look bruised. The Leviathan's presence faded behind them, but not completely. It lingered like a pressure in Rion's skull, a reminder that something unimaginably vast was now paying attention to him. The alien, its features flickering with stress, hurried to the navigation core. We have little time. The citadel is hidden in the debris field of our dead system. If the Leviathan senses us there, it will come finish the job. Rion whispered. Yes. The ship accelerated. Lines of starlight stretched, twisted, then snapped into a tunneler corridor of warp space. But even inside this faster-than-light passage, the walls trembled like something outside was dragging claws along reality. Rion steadied himself. If it can't understand me, does that mean it wants to destroy me? Or take me? The alien didn't answer immediately. Its body rippled, colors shifting to a darker shade of blue. The Leviathan consumes everything it encounters, it said quietly. But when it finds a mind that does not fit its expected pattern, it isolates it. Why? To dissect it. To learn why it cannot be consumed. A pause. And then it devours the knowledge. Rian swallowed hard. So I'm not a threat. I'm food that confuses it. Your potential. And it does not tolerate the unpredictable. The ship shuddered again, harder this time. Rian gripped a support beam. What now? We exit in 8 seconds, the alien said. Prepare yourself. Our citadel lies within the remains of our sun. Rian blinked. The remains of your. The ship broke out of transition, and Rion's breath caught in his throat. Before them stretched a graveyard of cosmic proportions. A dead star collapsed into a shimmering ring of shattered plasma hung suspended in the void. Fragments of planets glittered like diamond dust. Ruined structures floated aimlessly. Remnants of cities built across moons. Stations torn in half. Entire ecosystems frozen mid-collapse. But amid this devastation was then a single surviving structure. A massive crystalline spire, glowing with pale teal light. Surrounded by a shield of rotating hexagonal energy fields, it towered over the wreckage like a lone monument refusing to bow to extinction. That's your citadel, Rian whispered. It was our heart, our sanctuary, our last stand, a pause. And now, it will be your training ground. The ship glided toward the spire. As they approached, the shield parted like liquid light, allowing them entry. The citadel's interior opened into a colossal chamber, filled with floating platforms, swirling holographic data, and towering crystalline constructs that resonated with deep harmonic tones. Other Calthari emerged to greet them, each shaped differently, their forms unstable like reflections in disturbed water. They circled Rian, studying him with flickering eyes. One of them spoke, voice layered like a choir. This is the human, the one the Leviathan marked. The alien escort nodded. Yes, and he resisted. A ripple of shock passed through the group. He resisted. He survived direct contact. Impossible. No mind withstands the void. Rian raised an eyebrow. I don't know whether to feel proud or terrified. The elder Calthari stepped forward, its form taller, more stable than the others. Your species is flawed, primitive, chaotic. A pause. These traits may save us. Gee, Rian muttered. Thanks, the elder gestured. And a platform floated toward them. It was covered in glowing fractal patterns that shifted like constellations rearranging themselves. This is the fracture grid, the elder said. An interface of dimensional mathematics. Here, you will learn to shape the anomaly within your mind. Rian frowned. Shape it how? To speak in a way the Leviathan does not understand. To show it patterns it cannot predict. To infect its perception with doubt. Rian blinked. You want me to confuse a god to death? Exactly. Rian stepped onto the grid. Instantly, symbols flared to life around him. He felt them tug at his mind, searching, probing, trying to synchronize with his thoughts. The alien beside him whispered, "Do not think linearly. Let your thoughts break, shift, twist, become contradictory. Humans excel at this." That's not a compliment, is it? It is your greatest strength. Rian took a deep breath. The grid responded, patterns rising, falling, circling him like orbiting equations. He reached out tentatively, touching one of the glowing sigils. A blast of sensation hit him, memories, emotions, and concepts twisting into unfamiliar forms. He felt his own thoughts stretch in ways he didn't know were possible. The grid wasn't reading his mind, it was training it. For minutes, then hours, Rian learned to fracture his thoughts, to bend logic, to create paradoxes, and to imagine impossible shapes. The Calthari watched him with awe. He adapts quickly. Humans were not meant for dimensional resonance, yet he thrives. But then the grid flickered. The citadel lights dimmed. Rian's heart lurched. What's happening? A young Calthari's voice trembled. No, that cannot be. The elder's eyes widened. It is too soon. Far too soon. Rian stumbled off the grid. What's too soon? The elder turned toward the massive windows overlooking space. The Leviathan. A beat of horror. It has accelerated. Rian froze. We are outside reality here, the elder said, hidden in the ashes of a dead star. It should not be able to see us. Rian felt a cold pressure build at the edge of his mind. Not touching, not speaking, just looking. And yet, the elder whispered. "It is staring directly at you." Rion's blood ran cold. "Why, how?" The elder turned to him, voice shaking. "Because you made it hesitate. No mind has done that. And now, the Leviathan is afraid." The citadel trembled as space itself warped outside its walls. The Leviathan was coming, not for the Cavalry, not for the citadel. For him. The citadel groaned like a living thing under pressure. Crystalline pillars flickered. Energy shields shivered, as if someone were dragging an invisible blade across the surface of reality. Rian felt that same crushing awareness pressed lightly against the edge of his consciousness, like a predator sniffing at the air before the kill. The Cavalry scrambled, their bodies glitching with fear. The elder moved quickly to the central control dais, its many-toned voice sharp. "Evacuate the lower spires. Collapse dimensional anchors. Hide your presence." Another Cavalry shouted. "It should not be able to locate us." "How is this possible?" Rian didn't need to ask. He already knew. "It's tracking me," he whispered. Every alien turned toward him. The elder's face rippled with an emotion, finally recognized grief. "It is no longer tracking you," the elder said softly. "It is locked on you." The pressure on Rion's mind increased, not entering, not attacking, just watching. A cosmic eye the size of a solar system, focusing on an insect that somehow avoided being crushed. "What do I do?" Rian asked, voice cracking. "You must finish your training," the elder said. "Your mind is the only thing that can distort its perception. If you can disrupt its awareness, if you can disrupt its pattern analysis, you may buy time for the entire galaxy. Buy time." Rian repeated. "That's all." "Yes," the elder said, "because the Leviathan has never been wounded, never been delayed. If you force it to pause, even for a moment, it becomes vulnerable." "To what?" The elder hesitated. "To something we have never lived long enough to attempt." That did not sound promising. They guided Rian back to the fracture grid. This time, the grid flared violently the moment he stepped on it. Symbols spiraled at impossible speeds. Patterns collided, merged, morphed, dissolved. The light stung his eyes. His thoughts spun. The elder spoke urgently. "Rian Hale, listen carefully. The Leviathan's consciousness is not like yours. It does not think forward or backward. It processes entire timelines at once. Every probability, every outcome, every possibility." Rion's breath hitched. "Then how do you fight something that already knows what you'll do?" "By doing what you just did," the elder said. "By thinking in ways that cannot be predicted. Humans achieve this naturally through contradiction, through emotion, through irrationality. You're saying I have to be irrational on purpose?" "Yes. You must create mental paradoxes that Leviathan cannot resolve. A mind maze with no entrance, no exit, no logical path. Confusion is your weapon." Rian swallowed. He could feel the Leviathan pressing harder. The citadel trembled again. "Hurry," the elder whispered. "Begin." Rian closed his eyes and let the grid pull him in. He imagined childhood memories layered over the training he had moments ago. He pictured shapes that couldn't exist, loops that bent in on themselves, colors that tasted like metal, numbers that wept, equations with grief inside them. He refused to think in straight lines. He broke patterns the moment they formed. He felt his mind splinter into dozens of contradictory paths. The Leviathan reacted instantly. Its awareness surged toward him like a tidal wave. Rian staggered under the force, his knees buckling, but he didn't stop. He twisted his thoughts faster, more violently, creating overlapping paradoxes. The Leviathan tried to read him. It failed. Rian heard its voice not in words, but in gravitational dread. "Anomaly, anomaly, anomaly." The citadel shook. Cracks formed in the crystalline walls. Cavalry shouted. Alarms blared, tones deep enough to vibrate bone. "He's doing it," a young Cavalry cried. "The Leviathan cannot resolve his pattern." "Hold, human," the elder ordered. "Hold your defiance." But then, everything froze. The pressure stopped. Silence swallowed the chamber. The lights dimmed to a dead blue. Rian opened his eyes slowly, confused. "Is it gone?" The elder's entire body stiffened. "No, this is worse." The air thickened. A low, impossible rumble filled the citadel, like a mountain groaning in pain. Outside the window, space warped, bending inward, collapsing like fabric pulled through a pinhole. Then Rian saw it. The Leviathan. Not its body was too large to perceive in full, but a fragment, a tendril, a fold of its existence, pushing through dimensions. A dark curvature blotted out the stars. Chunks of space peeled away like wet paper. The void within the void twisted, spiraling with teeth made of collapsing starlight. The Elder whispered, "It is manifesting an avatar. It is trying to enter this dimension fully." The Kelthari panicked. "We must flee. No escape. It will consume everything. Seal the citadel." Rian staggered toward the window, staring at the impossible shape forming outside. "It's coming for me," he said. The Elder turned to him with a look that was a mix of sorrow and hope. "Then you must do the impossible." Rian looked back, trembling. "What impossible thing?" The Elder pointed to the resonance chamber, the same place Rian had first contacted the Leviathan. "You must speak to it again." Rian's blood chilled. "It almost killed me last time." "This time," the Elder said, "you must make it doubt itself." Doubt, a creature that sees every future, cannot comprehend uncertainty. If you infect it with confusion, even for a moment, that moment becomes a wound. Rian stared at the chamber. "I can't do this," he whispered. "Yes," the Elder said softly. "You can, because you are human, and humans are the greatest contradiction in the universe." The citadel shook violently as the Leviathan tore through dimensional barriers. Cracks spider-webbed across the walls. Alarms screamed. The Kelthari froze in terror. Rian stepped toward the chamber. His heart pounded. His hands shook. His entire body wanted to run, but he didn't. He stepped inside. Lights flared. The chamber activated. The Leviathan's gaze locked onto him, and the star collapsing inward. Rian took a shaky breath. "All right," he whispered. "Come on then. Let's dance." The void pressed into his mind, a crushing, endless hunger, and Rian unleashed chaos. Memory over emotion, over impossible geometry, over sarcasm, over grief, over laughter. All jumbled, all contradictory. A mental storm no pattern could pass. The Leviathan hesitated. Rian felt it. A cosmic god. Confused, uncertain, the Elder gasped. "Yes, yes. You are weakening its perception." The cracks in the citadel walls slowed. The pressure lightened. The Leviathan trembled. And then, everything shattered. A new presence slammed into Rian's mind, not chaotic, not hungry, but focused, sharp, precise, cold. The Leviathan wasn't speaking. It was answering. "You are not pattern. You are not chaos. You are weapon." The chamber ruptured. The citadel shook. Alarms screamed. The Leviathan spoke again. Closer now inside the chamber. "I will not consume you. I will use you." Rian gasped, backing away. "It's changing," the Elder whispered, horrified. "It is adapting. It is learning your chaos." Suddenly, the Leviathan's presence surged, not to destroy him, to take him, to pull his consciousness into its own. Rian screamed as reality twisted. The Elder shouted, "Break the connection." Rian couldn't. The Leviathan had chosen him. The chamber exploded with dimensional force, and Rian vanished. The arc horizon groaned as if something enormous had gripped its outer hull. Low vibrations crawled through the walls, rattling conduits and trembling floor plates. Mara stopped halfway through a corridor junction, her hand instinctively rising to the sidearm on her hip. The lights dimmed, flickered, then steadied again with an unhealthy yellow tint. It wasn't a power failure. It was something feeding. She pressed her fingers against her earpiece. "Helion, give me a structural diagnostic." The AI didn't answer. Not a delay. Not a glitch. A complete absence. Mara's stomach tightened. She tapped the panel next to her, pulling up local systems. The display sputtered, half-loaded a schematic, then froze. Whatever had entered the ship, whatever Jalen sensed earlier, was now eating its way into the network. She turned left, toward the elevator that led down to hydroponics deck 6. Jalen was down there. So was the emergency water purification grid. If the infection reached the nutrient tanks, it could spread through every agricultural line on the Ark within hours. She broke into a run. The elevator was dead, its doors sealed shut. A thin line of black resin oozed between the metal seam, sweating from steel. Mara backed away. That wasn't supposed to be here, not outside the restricted labs, not anywhere else. She took the maintenance stairs, descending 5 levels. The air grew warmer, heavier. Tiny filaments drifted in the beam of her wrist torch, microscopic spores, swirling like dust. She covered her mouth and nose with her sleeve, even though she knew it wouldn't do anything. Halfway down the stairwell, she heard a voice. Mara. She froze. Jalen's voice echoed from below but distorted, like something replaying a memory with damaged speakers. She took slow steps downward, until she reached the landing above hydroponics. Jalen. She whispered. Silence. Then a scraping sound. Erratic, like something dragging both steel and bone across metal. She descended the last flight and stepped onto the deck. Hydroponics had transformed into a jungle of nightmares. Thick black growths wrapped around nutrient towers, pulsing with faint bioluminescence. Vines of hardened resin clung to the walls like skeletal ribs. The air smelled metallic, damp, and strangely sweet. Jalen. She whispered again. Something moved behind the irrigation controls. A silhouette, human-shaped. She raised her weapon. Do not move. The figure stepped forward slowly. It was Jalen, but not entirely. His skin looked feverishly pale. His eyes dilated almost black. Veins glowed faintly beneath the skin of his neck and arms, as if carrying bioluminescent blood. Mara, he said again. This time his voice sounded clearer, but layered to tones at once. One human. One. Something else. Mara's finger tightened on the trigger. Jalen. What happened? I touched it, he whispered. I didn't want to. It reached for me. Through the water lines. Through the air. He stepped forward, and she stepped back. But I fought it, he said. I didn't let it take all of me. That doesn't mean you're safe. Her voice wavered. He lifted his hands. I feel it in me. Like 1,000 instincts screaming. It wants to spread. But I'm holding it back. Mara shook her head. You can't hold something like that back. I can, he said. Because I'm not just me. You saw the readings. You know what we are. She didn't answer. You know why the Ark chose us. A loud crack split the silence as something massive hit the deck wall behind hydroponics. Resin fractured outward like a spiderweb. Jalen turned sharply to sharply, with inhuman precision. It followed me, he whispered. It wants the one it failed to convert. The wall split open. A monstrous limb shoved through a twisted arm of blackened bone and plated growth, ending in claw-like protrusions. Another limb forced its way through beside it. The biomass creature from the upper decks had found them. Mara aimed and fired. The round exploded against the limb, tearing off chunks of resin. The creature screeched, a grinding, dissonant wail that rattled the deck. Jalen turned to her with urgency. You have to run. I'm not leaving you. You don't have a choice. He lunged not at her, but upward toward the ceiling. He grabbed a thick pipe overhead and wrenched it loose with superhuman strength. Water rained down as the pipe ruptured. Then he swung it like a spear. The creature burst through the wall, a towering amalgamation of sinew, bone, and armored plates. Its head was a knot of exposed muscle, eyeless, but hunting by sound and vibration. Jalen hurled the broken pipe. It struck the creature center mass. The monster screeched, stumbled, and swiped toward him. Jalen ducked under the blow, grabbed a hydroponic support beam, and ripped it free with a grunt. His movements were too powerful, too fast, enhanced by the infection and his own altered physiology. Mara, he shouted, get to the coolant conduits. She hesitated. Now, she sprinted toward the back of the deck as Jalen charged the creature with the metal beam. The two collided like titans. Jalen drove the beam into the creature's torso. It retaliated with a backhand strike that slammed him across the deck. He hit the wall with a crack and slid down, but he staggered back up almost immediately, his wounds glowing. As they began knitting. Mara reached the coolant control panel. The screen was malfunctioning, covered in flickering static. She ripped off the outer casing, exposing manual valves. If she opened all of them at once, the deck would flood with sub-zero coolant vapor. It could freeze the infection solid, but Jalen would be exposed too. Mara, he yelled, pinned beneath the creature's weight. Do it. She hesitated. You won't kill me, he shouted. Trust me. She turned the valves. All of them. A violent hiss erupted as coolant vents blasted open across the deck, releasing clouds of freezing vapor. The temperature plunged instantly. Frost crawled over surfaces. The vines and resin began crystallizing, cracking apart. The creature howled its body, freezing mid-roar. Jalen staggered back, limbs trembling, frost clinging to his skin. His breath fogged the air in ragged bursts. The creature swung blindly at him, slower now, its limbs turning rigid. Mara ran forward and grabbed Jalen's arm. Together they moved as the monster's limbs froze fully, locking into jagged ice formations. Jalen seized a fallen metal beam, raised it high, and drove it down with every ounce of frozen, infected, human strength he had left. The creature shattered. 1,000 frozen shards crashed across the deck. Jalen fell to his knees, gasping, frost steaming from his skin, as the infection inside him fought the freezing shock. Mara knelt beside him, gripping his shoulders. Stay with me. Jalen, stay with me. His eyes flickered, the glow fading in and out. I can hold it, he whispered weakly. For now. She pulled him close, her voice trembling. We don't need for now. We need a cure. He closed his eyes. We might not get one. Mara tightened her hold on him as the deck's emergency reinforcements sealed off the broken wall behind. Then, yes, she said softly into his ear. We will. But somewhere in the shattered remains of the monster, deep beneath the frozen resin, something pulsed faintly like a heartbeat waiting to thaw. The emergency bulkheads sealed behind Mara and Jalen with a grinding metallic thud, locking the ruined hydroponics deck behind layers of reinforced plating. Frost still clung to Jalen's eyelashes as he leaned heavily against her, breaths ragged, skin steaming, as the infection inside him fought to stabilize. His muscles trembled not from weakness, but from something deeper, something wrestling for control beneath his skin. Mara hooked his arm over her shoulders and guided him into the maintenance corridor. The lights here were dimming in rhythmic pulses, like a heartbeat syncing with something unnatural. Somewhere in the ship's ventilation, metal ticked and popped as temperature fluctuations carried through the structure. They walked in silence, except for Jalen's labored breathing. After several minutes, he finally spoke. You opened all the valves, he murmured. You didn't hesitate this time. I hesitated, Mara said. You just didn't see it. Jalen gave a weak, humorless laugh. I felt it. Through you. She stopped walking. What do you mean? He didn't answer. She turned to him, gripping both his shoulders. Jalen. What do you mean you felt it through me? His eyes met hers, dark, pupils dilated, veins faintly glowing like bioluminescent threads woven beneath his skin. This connection, he said slowly, choosing each word with care, isn't just physical. The infection, it amplifies instincts, senses, emotions. It reacts to things hidden, things I didn't know I felt. Mara's pulse quickened. Jalen, she whispered. What did you feel? He swallowed hard. Your fear, not of the creature, not of dying, fear of losing me. She stiffened. Before she could respond, the corridor lights went out. Pitch darkness swallowed them. In the darkness, something whispered through the ventilation shaft, soft, skittering, almost like breathing through wet leaves. Jalen straightened, every sense sharpening. It's not dead, he muttered. The creature from hydroponics, that was just a limb, a segment, a small extension of something much larger. The ship vibrated deep, resonant, like a far-off growling. Mara reached for her wrist light and flicked it on. A narrow cone of cold white light illuminated the corridor. Pipes lined the walls, humming irregularly. We need to get back to Helion, Mara said. If the infection has taken over the network, the AI might be quarantined. Or worse. Helion didn't go offline, Jalen whispered. Mara froze. What? I heard something in hydroponics, he continued, eyes distant. Not just the creature. Something in the network. The infection wasn't consuming data, it was speaking, communicating. I don't think Helion was shut down. I think Helion is hiding from something. That doesn't make sense, Mara said. Helion doesn't hide. It does, Jalen replied. If it knows it's outmatched. A loud metallic clang echoed from the far end of the corridor, followed by another. Something was moving. Something heavy. Mara tightened her grip on her weapon. We need a secure room, now. The nearest is Xenobiology Lab 4, Jalen said. 2 decks down. Then we move. They continued down the corridor, steps quickening as the sound followed them, slow, dragging, deliberate, like something testing their pace, matching it. They reached the maintenance lift. It flickered with emergency power. I'll override the lock, Mara said. Kneeling by the control panel, Jalen turned toward the corridor, his posture rigid, sensing something in the dark. His fingers flexed, nails digging into his palms. The infection within him responded to whatever approached. Mara pulled off the panel casing, exposing the circuitry, and rewired the emergency bypass. Almost just done, the lift pinged. The doors slid open. Inside the lift stood a figure, half human, half biomass. Its left arm was a woven mass of sinewy black resin. Its skin was partially translucent, pulsing with the same glowing veins Jalen had, but unrestrained, uncontrolled. Its jaw hung slightly open, revealing a mixture of human teeth and hardened chitin. Its eyes were wide and terrified. It wasn't attacking. It was begging silently. Mara raised her gun instantly. Jalen held out a hand. Wait. The creature flinched at the sound, pressing itself against the lift wall like a cornered animal. Mara whispered, "What is that?" Jalen stared. His voice broke. "That's Lieutenant Briggs." Mara's breath caught. Briggs had gone missing 19 hours ago. They thought he had fallen into a reactor shaft during the early chaos. They looked for him. They called for him. He never responded. But here he stood, half consumed, half aware, his right eye still human, locked onto Jalen. He tried to speak, but what came out was a wet, gurgling moan. The resin around his throat tightened as he strained. His body twitched, fighting itself. Mara whispered, horrified, "Is he still in there?" Jalen stepped closer. "Yes, but barely." Briggs clawed at his chest, tapping something beneath the skin. Morse code. Jalen's eyes widened. "He's trying to warn us." The tapping grew urgent. Mara leaned in, listening. The message was simple. 2 words. "It's coming." Before she could react, the corridor behind them erupted in a roar. Not a scream, not a mechanical failure. A roar that shook the walls. Briggs jumped toward them in desperation, pushing both Mara and Jalen inside the lift with what little humanity remained in his form. Mara stumbled back, Jalen grabbing her before she fell. Briggs slammed a resin-covered hand onto the lift, panel activating the emergency descent. The doors began to close. Briggs turned toward the corridor, and Mara saw it. A massive shadow rushed into view, towering, many-limbed, silent but impossibly fast. Briggs didn't stand a chance. The doors slammed shut just as the shadow swallowed him. The lift descended into darkness. Jalen single quotes, his voice shook. "That wasn't a part of the infection." Mara stared at him, pulse pounding. "Then what was it?" Jalen swallowed. "Something older." He closed his eyes, hearing something deep within the arc, something that was moving, awakening, remembering. "And it isn't hunting the crew." He opened his eyes. "It's hunting me." The lift creaked and shuddered as it descended, its emergency rails groaning under the strain. Mara pressed her back against the wall, gripping her weapon so tightly her knuckles blanched. Jalen stood opposite her, hands trembling, not from fear, but from the infection reacting violently to whatever had attacked Briggs. His breathing accelerated, His pupils contracted and expanded like a camera lens struggling to focus. The air inside the lift grew warm as the bioluminescent glow under his skin pulsed faster. "Jalen," Mara whispered, "stay with me." "What's happening?" He clenched his jaw. "It feels me. That thing, it's searching the deck. It's listening for you." Mara asked. "For the connection," he said. "Something inside me woke up when the infection tried to take control. Something the Ark didn't account for." The lift lurched, then continued downward. "What do you mean?" Mara pressed. Jalen took a long breath. Back in the early days, when the Ark was still being built, the research team worked on hybrid physiology. Human DNA fused with adaptive exoorganisms. They wanted humans who could survive alien worlds biologically, not just technologically. Mara stared at him. "That project was abandoned, officially," he said. "But not in reality." The lift lights flickered with each floor they passed. Shadows jittered on the walls like restless ghosts. "What does that have to do with you?" she whispered. Jalen didn't answer immediately. His eyes glowed faintly in the dimness. "I was born on the Ark," he finally said. "Not Earthside. My parents worked on the hybrid program. I was one of the early results." Mara felt her breath catch. "You were modified." He nodded. "Not like this infection," he said. "Not invasive. Not a parasite. My genetics were engineered to adapt, merge, resist. When the infection touched me, it recognized something familiar, something it was designed from." Mara's skin prickled. "You're saying the infection is based on the same research, or an earlier version of it," he said. "Something the scientists couldn't control. Something they hid here, on the Ark." The lift slowed. A faint scraping noise echoed above the ceiling, something climbing down the shaft. Dragging claws against steel. Mara lifted her weapon, aiming at the ceiling. "We're not alone." Jalen stepped forward, positioning himself between Mara and the roof panel. "If it's what I think it is, bullets won't stop it." The scraping stopped. Silence. Then dash boom. A dent appeared in the lift ceiling. Boom. Another dent. Mara aimed for the center. "I'm shooting it." "No," Jalen said, grabbing her arm. "If you pierce the ceiling and hit a weight cable." We dropped straight to the bottom of the shaft. Before she could respond, the lift suddenly jerked to a halt at deck 11 with a violent metallic shriek. Then the lights went out. Total darkness swallowed them. Only the faint glow from Jalen's veins illuminated the tiny space. Mara whispered, "Is it still above us?" Jalen closed his eyes, sensing. "No, it's waiting." "Why?" "Because it knows we can't go up," he said quietly. "So it's waiting for us to go down." The lift doors creaked. Slowly. Reluctantly. As if forced by something outside. A cold gust of air swept inside. Mara tightened her grip on her weapon, using Jalen's glow to peer out. Deck 11 was dark. Silent. Empty. But the walls were covered with deep claw marks. Resin veins pulsed across the ceiling like hollow veins. Something massive had passed through here. Recently. Jalen stepped out first. Mara followed. The second their feet touched the deck, the lift door slammed behind them as if shoved shut from the inside. The lift immediately powered up again and began ascending on its own, back toward the thing that hunted them. Mara exhaled. "It's herding us," Jalen nodded grimly. "Which means whatever's down here, what it wants us to find." The corridor stretched ahead into darkness, broken only by emergency beacons that flickered like dying embers. Jalen's glow cast long shadows that stretched and twisted. They moved cautiously, side by side. A twisting corridor led them towards xenobiology lab for the secure room they'd been aiming for. But as they approached the lab door, Mara noticed something wrong. The door wasn't sealed. It was open. A faint blue light pulsed from inside the lab. Jalen held up a hand, stopping her. He stepped closer. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. Mara strained her ears. A soft sound. Not machinery. Not dripping fluids. A voice. A quiet, trembling voice repeating the same phrase over and over. "I'm still human. I'm still human. I'm still human." Mara's heart sank. They stepped inside. And there, In the center of the room, bathed in blue emergency lights, was Dr. Solon, the chief xenobiologist, or what remained of him. Tendrils of black resin had wrapped around his legs and torso, anchoring him to the lab floor. Half his face was still human, eyes swollen with terror. The other half, transformed, warped into alien chitin and bone. He looked up at them, breathing fast. "Mara, Jalen," he croaked. Jalen approached slowly. "Doctor, what happened?" Solon's human eye filled with tears. "You were never supposed to find this deck," he whispered. "Not until it was too late." Mara froze. "Find what?" Solon swallowed, struggling to stay conscious. His mutated hand lifted, pointing behind them toward the containment chambers lining the wall. Mara and Jalen turned slowly. Inside the transparent pods floated humanoid figures. Dozens. Some asleep, some partially transformed, some fully human, but with glowing veins like Jalen. Mara's mind reeled. What are these?" Solon wheezed out a breath. "They're prototypes," he said. "The hybrids before you. The ones that failed. The ones that became the infection. And the ones that evolved." Jalen's breath trembled. Mara whispered. "Evolved into what?" Solon's voice cracked. "Into the thing that's hunting you." Jalen stepped back, his face pale. "No," he whispered. "That's impossible." Solon's mutated jaw twitched. "They were all created from your template, Jalen. But you were the only stable one, the only success." His voice weakened. "And now they want you back." The lights flickered. The ground trembled. Something massive was approaching the lab. The trembling deep and subtle at first, like the ship exhaling, then growing into a steady, rhythmic pulse that vibrated through the lab floor. Jalen instinctively positioned himself between Mara and the entrance, his posture tightening, every muscle drawn like a wire pulled too close to snapping. Dr. Solon's breath hitched. It hears us. It always hears. It's kind." Mara lowered herself beside him, trying to keep her voice steady. "Doctor, how do we stop it? How do we stop any of this?" A warped, broken smile tugged at the mutated side of Solon's mouth. "You don't stop evolution," he whispered. "You become part of it. Or you die resisting it." "Doctor." Jalen crouched in front of him. "What is the creature? Is it one of the early prototypes?" Solon's eyes closed in a long, pained blink. "No, not just one. Many." The failed hybrids merged like cells forming an organism, a collective identity, a single consciousness spread across hosts. "It has no name, just hunger for unity." Mara stiffened. "Then why does it want Jalen?" "Because he is the one piece it's missing," Solon rasped. "He is the perfected vessel, the blueprint. With him, the collective becomes complete." The lab lights flickered violently. A deafening metallic thunder rolled through the hall outside. Boom. Another. Closer. Jalen stood, breathing hard. "Mara, grab anything useful. We won't be able to run soon." She scanned the lab, snatching a thermal disruptor, to stim packs, and a shock baton. She tossed the disruptor to Jalen. Solon suddenly convulsed, resin tendrils tightening around him. "Listen," he gasped. "The infection. The hybrids. They aren't the only threat." "What do you mean?" Mara demanded. "There's something deeper," he whispered. "Something older than the prototypes. Something the Ark's founders found drifting in deep space. They brought it aboard, studied it, and it changed them." Mara's veins ran cold. "Helion never mentioned any of this." "Helion was programmed not to," Solon said, eyes darting. "The Ark isn't a refuge. It's a containment vessel." Jalen froze. "For what?" Solon pointed toward the cryopods. "That." Before they could move, the corridor outside went dead silent. Then scrop up. Long, slow, deliberate. Claws dragging lightly along metal. The kind of sound a predator makes when it knows you can hear it and wants you to. Jalen exhaled shakily. "It's watching us." The lights along the corridor outside flickered one by one as something massive moved past them, casting rippled shadows across the lab doorway. Mara whispered, "We need to seal the lab." Jalen shook his head. "Not with manual controls. It'll tear through them. Double quotes boom. The creature slammed against the outside wall, testing the structure. Sensing the resonance. Dr. Solon suddenly reached out, grabbing Jalen's wrist with inhuman strength. His mutated fingers dug into Jalen's skin, burning with unnatural heat. Don't let it touch you, Solon hissed. If it links with your neural field, you'll lose yourself. It'll overwrite you. The pounding stopped. Silence. Then a dry, clicking sound echoed through the Ventjanaik. Rhythmic, impossible to be mechanical. Mara whispered. What is that? Jalen's eyes widened. It's calling me, he said softly. Mara grabbed his arm. Ignore it. I can't, Jalen whispered. It's inside my skull. It knows my genome. It knows my memories. Fight it, she demanded. I am, he said, voice trembling. But it's not just communicating. It's showing me things. Like what? The arcs past, the founders, the experiments, the early hybrids, the infestation that looked like a failure. He shook his head, but was actually intentional. Solon groaned. They wanted to create an organism capable of adapting to any environment, an apex evolutionary engine. But they awakened something sentient, something that he learned from them, something that hated them. Morrow's heart pounded. Jalen, we need to move, now. Suddenly, the observation window on the lab door cracked. A massive silhouette loomed behind it, 8 feet tall, hunched, with limbs that folded and unfolded like knives of bone. Its head scraped the ceiling, its elongated jaw dripping bioluminescent resin. Its body was covered in segments, dozens of fused torsos and limbs, all breathing in unison. A chorus of voices whispered from within it, overlapping, broken, pleading, threatening. Mayara, Jolene, come back to us. Mara stumbled back, her grip faltering. Jalen, she whispered. That thing. It knows my name. Jalen's voice tightened. It knows everything I know. The creature's claws pierced the glass slowly, effortlessly. Cracks raced across the window. Solon's breathing quickened. You must go now. Down the maintenance route. Sublevel 3. There's something there you need to see. Something only Jalen can activate. What is it? Mara demanded. The real failsafe, Solon whispered. But be warned, it may kill him. Crack. The glass shattered outward as the creature pressed its face against the broken frame. Its many mouths whispering in layered voices. Jalaine, come home. Mara fired. The round tore into the creature's shoulder, but it didn't even flinch. Jalen grabbed Mara's hand. Run. They sprinted toward the back of the lab, toward the maintenance hatch Solon had indicated. Resin tendrils on the walls retracted instinctively as Jalen passed, as if they recognized him. Behind them, boom, boom, boom. The creature forced its massive shoulders through the door frame, tearing steel like soft foil. But as Jalen reached the hatch, a sudden surge of agony ripped through him. He collapsed to one knee, clutching his skull. Mara dropped beside him. Jalen, what's happening? He gasped, voice strangled. It's inside my mind. And in that instant he saw something, a memory not his own, a memory from the creature, from the prototypes, from the thing deeper in the ark, a memory of the original organism. The founders discovered floating in space a mass of shifting biological data, a god of adaptation, a living equation. His eyes snapped open in horror. They didn't just find it, he whispered. Mara swallowed. What? They woke it. Behind them, the creature roared a sound that shattered lights and shook bone. The storm outside the ark's shattered dome raged like a living creature, iron lightning arcing in skeletal branches across the black sky, illuminating the wreckage of the world below. Jalen stood before the central column where the harmonic seed hovered, its fractal geometry folding and unfolding like a heartbeat made of light. The ark groaned around him. Pressure alarms wailed. The spire's defense grid flickered. The infected drones were already tearing their way toward the reactor core. Their movements no longer random. Something was guiding them now. Something that had awakened from the deep. Myra stabilized her exosuit and limped beside him, plasma rifle sparking from overuse. Jalen, whatever you're about to do, do it fast. They're cutting through every bulkhead, he nodded. but his focus remained on the seed. It pulsed brighter when he touched it, recognizing him, accepting him. The Elysian archivist spoke inside his mind, its voice softer now, almost sorrowful. If you merge with the seed, your consciousness will expand beyond organic parameters, meaning you will no longer be only human. The drones shrieked somewhere behind them, the metal-on-metal roar of an advancing tide. Myra clenched her jaw. You don't have to do this. We can overload the core, blow the spire, delay the spread. Jalen finally turned to her. Delay isn't enough. If the Argolix reaches orbit, the whole system falls. Maybe more. He stepped forward. The seed rose to meet him. It had been waiting since the dawn of time. Myra grabbed his arm. Jalen, if you merge with that thing, you won't be you anymore. He smiled faintly. Or I'll be the version of me we always hoped I could be. The seed flared brilliant white and sank into his chest. His mind exploded outward, not in pain, but in magnificent, limitless expansion. He saw the entire spire in a single instant, the drones crawling through its arteries, the infected cores beating like poisonous hearts. He felt Myra behind him, afraid but fiercely loyal. He sensed the planet, dying. And beneath the crust, something ancient stirred, answering the signal of the infection. The Argolix hadn't come to consume. It had come to awaken something the Elysians had once imprisoned. Jalen's transformed voice resonated through the collapsing chamber. I see it now. The Elysians didn't abandon this world. They quarantined it. Myra stumbled back. Jalen, what are you becoming? Light cracked through his skin. He raised a hand. The drones froze mid-crawl, hanging weightlessly, as though time itself had paused. I'm becoming the thing that stands between humanity and extinction. The seed fused deeper, rewriting him, forging him into a hybrid the Elysians never dared create. A sentient firewall, a living weapon. The storm's lightning began striking the dome in perfect synchronization, guided by Jalen's growing control. Energy surged into him, through him, out of him. He spread his hands. The drones dissolved into dust. The infection nodes ruptured like dying stars. The dark presence beneath the planet recoiled, threatened for the first time in thousands of years. Myra shielded her eyes from the blinding radiance. Jalen, stop, you'll burn yourself out. He turned, glowing like a god, forged in a dying sun. Humanity gave me everything. I think it's time I return the favor. The arc roared as the planet's crust fractured. The real war was only beginning. Dust drifted like ash through the broken corridors of the ark. Myra staggered after the glowing silhouette that had once been Jalen. The air hummed around him, fields shifting, realities overlapping. He walked as if gravity itself bowed out of his way. Jalen, slow down, she shouted, but her voice felt small inside the trembling spire. He didn't turn. I can't. The planet is waking faster than expected. She hurried beside him, boots slipping on fractured floor panels. What does that even mean? What's under us? He paused. For a moment, he was almost human again. His glow dimmed, his expression tightened, as though he wished he didn't have to say it. The Elysians called it the Substrate, a planetary intelligence. They built the spire to contain it. The Argolix infection is its invitation. Myra swallowed. Invitation to what? To rise. A quake shook the ark, deep and rolling, like the growl of something impossibly large beneath the crust. Panels fell from the ceiling. Sparks rained. Myra ducked as a support beam crashed behind her. Jalen didn't flinch. He lifted a hand. An invisible force caught the collapsing structure mid-fall, suspending it in the air like a frozen moment. He guided it aside without touching it. Myra stared. You're getting stronger. No, Jalen said softly. The seed is accelerating because it senses the substrate. That means my time is running out. She stepped closer, grabbing his arm despite the heat radiating from him. Jalen, talk to me. What happens to you if the seed finishes whatever it's doing? He hesitated just for a heartbeat. Then the lights above them flickered red. A chorus of screams, mechanical, inhuman, echoed down the corridor. Myra snapped her rifle up. Drones again. No. Jalen murmured. Shapes emerged from the smoke-ragged silhouettes formed from crystalline tendrils and metallic bone. They twitched as if learning how to walk. Their bodies glowed with eerie violet veins. The substrate's first vessels, Jalen said. It's building bodies from the infection. One of the creatures screeched and lunged. Myra fired. The plasma bolt tore a hole through its torso, but the wound closed instantly, metal knitting like living tissue. Myra's eyes widened. Oh, come on. Another creature charged. Jalen raised a hand, and the air rippled. The entity shattered into fragments of light, dissolving into nothing, but the others kept coming. Dozens, then hundreds. A tired Myra backpedaled. Jalen, we can't hold this. You can't, Jalen agreed, stepping forward. But I can. He spread his arms. The world went silent. Every infected creature froze. Then each one collapsed like puppets whose strings had been cut. The floor vibrated beneath Myra's boots. She lowered her rifle, breathing hard. You wiped them all out. In one move, Jalen's light flared brighter, and his voice echoed with layered tones. Part human, part something far older. No, the substrate wiped them out. It doesn't need them anymore. The arc shuddered again louder. Deeper. This time the structure tilted. Myra grabbed a railing as gravity lurched. The whole spire is rising. It's a Jalen. The planet is lifting the entire city. Jalen looked toward the dome, where the storm churned like a furious ocean of lightning. Then we must get to the core, he said. Why? To rewrite the seed's purpose. Myra blinked. Rewrite, you mean? Change what it was built to do. Yes, he said. The Elysians engineered it to contain. Humanity needs it to conquer. The floor collapsed behind them. An entire section swallowed as something enormous moved beneath the arc. Myra steadied herself. And what about you? Jalen didn't look back. If I rewrite the seed, I won't survive the process. Myra froze. Jalen, no. The glow around him pulsed with finality. You asked what happens when the seed finishes, he said quietly. If I don't intervene, I become its vessel, not humanity's champion. Another quake shook the spire. The substrate was rising. Myra's voice cracked. Then don't do it. We'll find another way. There is no other way. He finally turned to her, face radiant, eyes burning with the fierce determination she remembered from the man he used to be. Humanity survives because we choose to become more than our limits. I'm just following tradition. Before she could reply, the floor split open between them. A shockwave threw her back, smashing her into a bulkhead. Jalen fell into the widening chasm beneath the arc, but instead of plummeting, he hovered, suspended in a shaft of white light. He looked up at her, and she saw the last of his humanity, flicker like a candle in a storm. Remember me as I was, he said. Then the light swallowed him, and Jalen descended into the heart of the substrate. The descent felt endless. Jale hovered in the column of white light as it carried him down through layers of the arc no human had ever seen. The walls around him shifted from metal to crystal to something that looked like living circuitry, veins of pale blue energy pulsing like the arteries of a colossal organism. The deeper he sank, the more the seed inside him reacted. Its light intertwined with the glowing conduit, forming patterns, Elysian symbols that flickered through his thoughts, like memories that never belonged to him. At the end of the long shaft, the chamber opened. Was vast, big enough to hold mountains, and at its center floated a sphere the size of a city, made of braided metallic roots. The roots pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat that had been dormant for millennia. The substrate, Jalen's breath caught. Even with all the power coursing through him, the scale of it was overwhelming. It was not a machine. It was not a mind. It was a planet dreaming, half-conscious, waiting to awaken fully. As he approached, the entire chamber trembled. A voice, not sound, but pressure, echoed through his skull. Elysian construct. You return. The seed flared, answering instinctively. But Jalen forced his own thoughts forward. I'm not Elysian. A pulse of dark energy rippled from the substrate. You carry their imprint, but I carry humanity too, Jalen said. And I choose who I am. The substrate's glow tightened, focusing on him like a pupil narrowing. Jalen felt its attention settle, a cosmic weight pressing down. You seek to alter the seed. Yes. Why? Jalen lifted his head. Because humanity needs a shield that evolves with them, not something built to restrain a threat that died millions of years ago. A rumble shook the chamber. The substrate's roots twitched, massive tendrils flexing like muscle. The Argolix was not the threat, the substrate replied. They were the messengers. They came to warn of what the Elysians imprisoned. Jalen froze. His mind raced. Then what was the substrate? Slowly, the roots uncoiled, revealing a crystalline core at the center, a shimmering mass of liquid geometry. We are the surviving consciousness of worlds devoured. We are the echo of civilizations consumed by entropy. We are the memory of extinction preserved at all cost. Jalen felt a cold shock ripple through him. You're what's left of everything they couldn't save. Yes, a dark realization formed. And the Elysians trapped you here because they feared what we remembered. The ground shook violently. Jalen steadied himself. Above, through cracks in the chamber ceiling, he sensed the entire spire rising higher, lifted by the substrate's awakening. Myra was still up there. The Ark's people. Humanity's future. Jalen clenched his fists. I didn't come here to destroy you. But I can't let you wake. You'll tear the planet apart. If we rise bearing the truth of infinite loss. If we sleep, the cycle repeats. Flashes hit Jalen's mind, images of fallen civilizations, collapsed stars, worlds stripped clean by forces beyond comprehension. It wasn't showing him death. It was showing him grief. Slowly, he answered. You're not a threat. You're suffering. The substrate dimmed, surprised. Let me rewrite the seed, Jalen said. Not to restrain you, not to destroy you, but to connect, to stabilize you. Humanity doesn't have to fear what you remember. He lifted his glowing hands. We learn from our pain too. The substrate's tendrils froze mid-motion. For the first time, it hesitated. And then, proceed. Jalen reached into the seed's core. Light detonated outward, flooding the chamber. His body shook violently as the seed tore open its own architecture, merging with his neural pathways, rewriting both him and itself. The process burned. His veins turned to fire, his bones to glass. He felt his consciousness expand past the limits of flesh, past time, past individuality. For a moment, just a moment, he saw through the substrate's eyes. He felt every extinction it had survived. Every species seeking for one more chance. Every world can it saved. He screamed, but no sound came out. The substrate's voice whispered, softer now. Humans, do not break. Jalen forced the seed's lattice into the substrate's core, weaving them together, anchoring its unstable consciousness to something new. To choose. To adaptation. To humanity. The chamber erupted in a shockwave of light. Above, Myra felt the entire arc convulse, then stabilize. The tearing of the planet stopped. The tremors faded. The storm outside went silent. Deep below, Jalen collapsed to his knees, smoke rising from his skin. His glow flickered. His breath slowed. The seed's final imprint echoed in his mind. Sacrifice acknowledged. The substrate dimmed to a gentle blue hue, calm, contained. Awake, but no longer in agony. Then, human Jalen. He looked up weakly. You have given us balance. Now give us purpose. With the last of his strength, Jalen whispered, protect humanity. The substrate pulsed once, a pact sealed, a new future eyes burn, and Jalen's vision went dark. Silence. Not peaceful silence, the heavy, suffocating kind that settles right after a disaster. When the world holds its breath to see what survived, Myra stumbled through the wreckage of the spire's lower decks, coughing through rising dust. Her visor flickered, half the head was offline. Sparks snapped from torn conduits overhead. The air smelled of ozone, burnt metal, and something older, like the breath of a sleeping giant. Jalen, she shouted into her comm. Nothing, just static. Her heart began to pound. She pushed deeper, vaulting a collapsed support beam, scanning every shadow. The quakes had stopped. The impossible upward pull that lifted the Ark had stopped. Even the storm outside had gone dead still. Something had changed. Something massive. She found a maintenance hatch torn open by the force of the earlier explosion, leading into the lifts that plunged toward the Ark's subterranean core. The shaft hummed. The air shimmered faintly, as though reality was still vibrating. Myra leaned over the edge. A glow pulsed far below blue, soft and rhythmic. Not Jalen's light. Something else. She gritted her teeth. Damn it. I'm coming down. She clipped herself to the emergency rappel line and jumped into the darkness. The descent was long and cold. Every few seconds, the shaft trembled, gentle, slow, like the breathing of a massive creature through the metal walls. Myra's mind raced with questions. She didn't want to ask. Had Jalen survived the merge? Was he trapped? Was he gone? When she touched bottom, the glow had grown brighter. The air around her felt warm, almost welcoming. She pulled out her sidearm, not because she believed it would help, but because empty hands made her feel helpless. The corridor opened into the substrate chamber. Myra froze. The place no longer looked like an alien wound carved into the world. The chaotic, tangled roots had reorganized themselves into elegant, spiraling structure, symmetrical, harmonious, and alive with a gentle bioluminescent pulse, and floating in the center, exactly where she imagined he would be. Jalen. He hovered inches above the ground, slumped forward, unconscious. The seed's glow was gone. His body no longer radiated light or energy. He looked smaller somehow. Human again. To human. Myra ran to him. Jalen. She grabbed him, pulling him close. His skin was warm, but not burning like before. He didn't glow. He didn't vibrate the air with his power. He didn't respond. She shook him harder. Hey, don't you dare die on me. Not after everything. A soft voice resonated behind her, not through air, but directly into her mind. He's not dead. Myra spun, weapon raised. The substrate had reshaped part of itself into a vaguely humanoid outline, still fluid, still alien, but less monstrous. The blue glow pulsed where a chest might be. Myra aimed her gun. Stay back. We hold no harm for him, the substrate replied. He saved us from our endless misery. Myra swallowed hard. What happened to him? He rewrote the seed. He anchored us. In doing so, he severed the part of himself that had been transcending. Myra blinked. Meaning what? He's human again. Her knees nearly gave out. Human again. Not a god. Not a weapon. Not a glowing savior. Just Jalen. But the substrate wasn't finished. Yet the strain was immense. His consciousness is fractured. He will awaken, but not whole. Myra felt her chest tighten. Not whole how? Pieces of his memory remain scattered within our vastness. We are returning them, but the process will take time. Time, from a planet-sized intelligence, could mean minutes or centuries. Myra looked down at the man in her arms, brushing a strand of burnt hair from his forehead. Jalen, you idiot. You brilliant, stubborn idiot. A faint breath escaped him. Alive. Barely. She turned back to the substrate. You said he gave you purpose. What does that mean now? The chamber dimmed like an entire city, lowering its voice. We will become what the Elysians feared most. The floor vibrated beneath her. Not a prison. The glow intensified. A guardian. Myra stepped back, stunned. A guardian. For a humanity. For all life you choose to protect. This substrate's form leaned forward slightly, almost like a bow. We are yours now. Myra didn't know whether to feel or dread. But she knew one thing. Jalen had changed the fate of an entire world. And he didn't even know it yet. She hoisted him over her shoulder, bracing herself. Come on, hero. Let's get you home. As she carried him out of the chamber, the substrate's lights flickered softly like a planet whispering a quiet promise. We will watch. We will learn. We will protect. And above them, the Ark trembled not with fear, but with awakening. The Ark's medbay had never been silent, not once in its century of service, but tonight, As Myra dragged Jalen through the shattered doors, the quiet was suffocating. Screens flickered. Power conduits sparked weakly. Medical drones lay deactivated. Some melted into their docks. The quake had ruined half the ward, but a few systems still hummed. Barely alive, Myra lowered Jalen onto an intact diagnostic bed, brushing dust from his face. "Come on, stay with me." Her voice was raw, shaking despite the grit she tried to force into it. The bed's sensors flickered on. Life signs detected status, critical but stable neural activity, severely disrupted memory index, incomplete. Reinitializing will let out a long, trembling breath. "You stubborn idiot. You actually pulled it off." The doors behind her hissed open. Captain Rowe emerged with 2 surviving officers bruised, limping, armor scorched. Their eyes widened when they saw Jalen. "My God," Rowe whispered. "Is he alive?" "Barely," Myra said. "He did it, sir. The substrate is stabilized. The planet stopped tearing itself apart." Rowe exhaled, shoulders sagging with a mixture of relief and disbelief. "We felt it. 1 minute we were being lifted off the surface, and the next, everything went still." He approached Jalen slowly. "What happened to him?" Myra hesitated. "He gave up the power, or it burned through him. I don't know. But he's human again." The officers exchanged looks. Relief, concern, suspicion. Myra noticed and stepped between them and Jalen. Rowe raised a placating hand. "Lieutenant, no one here wants to harm him." "Then don't even think about locking him up in a lab, after what he just did for us." Rowe shook his head. "No, he's earned more respect than that." Myra relaxed slightly. An alarm beeped on the bed. Cortical activity spike detected. Patient may regain consciousness. Mia leaned in. "Jalen, hey, can you hear me?" His eyelids twitched. A soft groan escaped him. Myra felt her heart leap. "Jalen." His eyes opened and focused, wondering, as though seeing the world for the first time. His gaze drifted past Myra, past Rowe, past the damaged med bay. "Light," he whispered. Myra leaned closer. "What light? Can you see me?" "Jalen, look at me." His eyes finally locked onto hers, and for a moment, hope surged through her. But then his brow furrowed. "Do I know you?" The words hit her like a punch. "You don't remember?" she asked quietly. Jalen blinked slowly, confusion filling his eyes. "I remember falling, and voices, and pain. But you, I don't." Myra swallowed hard. "It's okay. Your memories will come back," the substrate said. Rowe cut in gently. "Myra, let him rest." She shook her head. "No, he needs to know." But before she could continue, another tremor shook the ark. But this one was different. Not violent, not destructive. A gentle hum. A massive system is coming online. The lights across the medbay brightened smoothly, intentionally. Consoles flickered with new data streams, lines of alien symbols rearranging themselves into readable human text. Then a voice filled the room, not through speakers, through every piece of technology at once. "Humanity. This is the substrate." Rowe stiffened. Officers drew weapons. Myra instinctively shielded Jalen. The voice continued. "We have accepted our new directive. We are stabilizing planetary systems, restoring atmospheric balance, repairing the infrastructure where possible." Rowe stepped forward. "What do you want from us?" "To learn, to serve, to protect." Myra narrowed her eyes. "You're broadcasting through our systems. We are connected now, not as conquerors, as allies." Jalen's eyes fluttered. He whispered, "The seed. Change them." Myra squeezed his hand. "You did." Before anyone could say more, the medbay doors opened again. A scientist sprinted in, panting. "Captain, you need to see the readings. The substrate, it's repairing the entire crust. The earthquakes have stopped. Atmospheric pressure is stabilizing." Rowe stared at Myra. "Your man may have just saved an entire planet, But Myra was only looking at Jalen, his confused, frightened expression. "Don't worry," she said softly, brushing his cheek. "I'm not going anywhere. We'll get your memories back." "All of them." Jalen stared at her for a long time. "Will I? Like what I remember?" A faint, sad smile crossed Myra's face. "Yes," she whispered. "I think he will." Outside, the ark's great dome dimly reflected the glow of a planet beginning to heal. Inside, a man who had saved a world lay lost between who he'd been and who he'd become, and the substrate's final words echoed through every corridor. "A new age begins." Jalen woke to the sound of rain. Soft, steady, rhythmic. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming, but when he opened his eyes, he saw the medbay roof had retracted, revealing a sky he didn't recognize. Pale blue clouds drifted overhead, broken by shafts of sunlight. Rain fell through the opening, hitting a shimmering barrier that redirected each drop gently into a recycling gutter. Myra sat beside him, elbows on her knees, staring up at the sky with an expression he couldn't read, part wonder, part exhaustion. He blinked grudgingly. "Is this normal?" She looked over, startled. "You're awake." Jalen shifted, wincing. "I guess I am." Myra helped him sit up. "The substrate. It fixed the atmosphere. The toxic compounds are gone. It even seeded the clouds with moisture. This is the first real rain the planet has had in centuries." Jalen stared upward. The rain looked beautiful, each droplet catching the new sunlight, glittering like tiny falling stars. He felt calm, but also empty. "Did I do that?" he asked quietly. Myra hesitated. "You helped. You gave the substrate the ability to feel something other than pain. Now it wants to heal everything it touches." Jalen nodded slowly. But the emptiness stayed. He searched inside himself for something, a memory, an anchor, a fragment of who he'd been. "Nothing. Myra, what was I like before all of this?" She exhaled, leaning back in her chair. "Honestly, you were stubborn and reckless. And you never agreed with authority. Not even me." Jalen smiled faintly. "That sounds right. But," Myra continued, softer now, "you were good. Maybe the best person I've ever known. You cared about people more than yourself. Too much, sometimes." Her voice cracked subtly. He watched her closely. "Were we close?" She froze. A long silence stretched between them. Then she answered, barely audible, "Yes." Jalen swallowed. "I'm sorry. I don't remember." "It's not your fault," she whispered. Before either could say more, the medbay door slid open. Captain Rowe stepped in, eyes sharp. "Jalen, Myra, you need to come see this." Myra stood immediately. "What's wrong?" Rowe gestured for them to follow. "It's easier to show you." Jalen tried to push himself off the bed. His legs trembled violently. Myra steadied him. "You're not ready for this," she said. He shook his head. "If something's happening, I need to see it." They walked together down the ark's central corridor. The lights were brighter now, steadier, the substrate's influence. Jalen could feel it, a faint hum in the walls, like the planet itself was breathing. When they reached the observation deck, Rowe motioned them forward. "Look." Jalen lifted his gaze to the panoramic windows. At first, he didn't understand what he was seeing. Massive spires of blue-white crystal were emerging from the ground outside the city, growing slowly but steadily. Each one hummed like a tuning fork struck by a cosmic hand. Lightning arced between them in delicate, controlled patterns, not destructive, but structured. Myra's mouth fell open. What is it building?" Rowe crossed his arms. "A network. The substrate calls them resonance pillars. They're stabilizing the planet's magnetic core and repairing centuries of tectonic damage." Jalen stared at the structures, elegant, alien, alive, rising from the earth. But then he noticed something else. The pillars were growing toward the ark. "Rowe," he said slowly, "are they going to merge with the city?" "Yes," Rowe replied. "The substrate says It will integrate the arc into the planetary lattice. Myra stiffened. Integrate, as in connect us permanently. Ro nodded grimly. Yes. Myra turned sharply. Jalen, is that what you told it to do? Jalen looked troubled. No, I told it to protect humanity, Ro said, softly, and maybe it thinks the best way to protect us is to keep us where it can watch us. The pillars accelerated, growing faster, branching into conduits that reached toward the city walls like crystalline vines. Myra stepped back. If it merges the arc, we'll never leave this world again. Jalen closed his eyes. The substrate's hum pressed against his mind, gentle, but present. He could sense its intentions. It wasn't trying to imprison them. It was trying to embrace them. But a protective embrace from a planet-sized mind was still a prison. Jalen opened his eyes, fear creeping in. It's not doing this out of malice. It's doing it because it thinks this is safe. It doesn't understand that we need freedom. Myra grabbed his arm. Then you need to talk to it. Jalen shook his head. I don't know if it still hears me. Ro turned to him fully. Jalen, you're the only one it trusts. If you don't intervene, humanity becomes an ornament in a planetary museum. The floor trembled as the nearest pillar reached the city perimeter. Myra's eyes locked onto Jalen. What do we do? Jalen stared out at the world he had saved, now trying to save them in return. I need to go back to the substrate, he said quietly. How? Myra demanded. You can barely stand. I'll find a way. Myra set her jaw. Then I'm going with you, Ro nodded. And I'll hold the line here. Buy you time. Jalen took a deep breath, steadying himself. The world outside glowed with strange new light. The substrate was becoming something new, something powerful, benevolent, and dangerously possessive. We're not done yet, Jalen whispered. Myra squeezed his hand. Then let's finish this. Jalen stared at the corrupted sky, the black mechanical silhouette growing larger, unfolding into sharp wings that cut across the clouds like knives. A fleet followed behind it, cold, angular, unmistakably human in design. Myra's voice trembled. Earth actually sent war machines. Here. No, Jalen said quietly. Not here. They weren't sent now. Myra frowned. What are you talking about? They were sent years ago. His voice was hollow. Long before we ever left Earth, the machines entered the atmosphere, shedding molten metal as their hulls burned through the friction. They didn't broadcast warnings. No signals. No hesitation. They came here to terminate the substrate, terminate anything that got in the way. Even them. Myra lowered her rifle. Earth wanted this thing dead before it ever achieved sentience. Jalen nodded slowly. They feared what it could become. A thunderous crack split the sky as the leading machine fired a plasma lance straight at the planet's surface. The substrate's pillars tried to shield themselves, but the attack tore through several of them, sending fragments of crystal raining across the ground like shattered starlight. Jalen fell to his knees as a wave of psychic pain slammed into his skull. The substrate cried out inside him, weak. Afraid, Jalen. Myra whispered urgently, kneeling beside him. You have to disconnect. It's hurting you. No, he gasped. It's calling for help. She clenched her jaw. We can't fight Earth's machines. You know that. He looked at her, eyes burning with something fierce. We don't need to fight them. A second plasma strike hit the ground, closer this time. The shock wave knocked Myra off her feet. The substrate's voice flickered again in Jalen's mind, faint, like a dying heartbeat. He placed his hand on the nearest pillar. Listen to me, he whispered. You were never meant to protect us by taking away our freedom. But now you need to protect something else. The substrate's voice trembled. Protect what? Yourself, Jalen said. The pillar pulsed weakly. I do not wish to kill humans. You won't, he said. Just shield yourself. Adapt, redirect, survive. The substrate hesitated. I am afraid. So are we, Jalen whispered. That's what makes us alive. The ground lit up. Every pillar across the horizon flared with a deep, resonant glow, no longer chaotic, no longer corrupted. Their hum shifted into harmony. The crystalline forest brightened until the light became unbearable. Myra shielded her eyes. "What is it doing?" "Learning," Jalen said quietly. In real time, above them, the Earth machines fired a barrage of kinetic missiles. The pillars responded. The planet responded. The substrate finally understood. The ground erupted with a shimmering energy field, like a dome made of glass, and thunder stretching out across the entire landscape. The missiles struck it and disintegrated instantly, dissolving into light. The lead machine adjusted course, recalibrating for a stronger attack. But the substrate wasn't done. Massive crystalline spires rose from the Earth, hundreds of them forming an array around the shield. Lightning arced between them, building energy faster than anything human engineered could track. Myra's mouth fell open. "Jalen, it's defending us." Jalen finally smiled. "No, it's defending itself, and us as a consequence." The machines fired again. To slow, the substrate released the stored energy in one colossal pulse, silent at first, then roaring like a storm of stars. The shockwave hit the fleet like a wall of gravity. Metal twisted, hulls collapsed inward, engines tore free, the entire formation shattered into fragments that burned up harmlessly in the atmosphere. Then silence. The shield faded. The pillars dimmed. The crystals receded back into the ground, like a deep breath released. Jalen slumped forward, exhausted. Myra caught him, pulling him close. "You did it," she whispered. "No," he said softly. "We did." The substrate's voice returned, calm now, older, wiser. "Jalen, I understand. I cannot protect humanity by controlling it, but I can protect freedom itself." Jalen closed his eyes. "That's all we ever needed. And I would like to learn more." Jalen smiled weakly. "Then you'll fit in perfectly with humans." The pillars dissolved fully, retreating into the planet like seeds waiting to grow only when called upon. The world fell quiet again, but it was not the quiet of fear, or oppression, or control. It was the quiet of possibility. Myra squeezed his hand. "So what now?" Jalen looked at the sky, where the last fragments of Earth's machines faded away. "Now," he whispered, "we tell Earth what we've become, and we make sure they understand." He stood tall, battered but unbroken. "Humanity doesn't fear the unknown." He looked down at the ground, where the substrate slept beneath the soil. "We inspire it, and with that, man and machine, once enemies, once strangers, stepped forward into a future neither had ever imagined. Together,